Good morning, everyone. Lovely to be with you on this Monday morning, on this week of practice together. My name is Ulla Koenig. I'm a mindfulness and a Dharma teacher from southern Germany. I'm happy to be with you this week. We're going to continue and actually finish our series on the Four Noble Truths. And I saw that someone just put the link to the other sessions into the chat box. That is lovely. So you can go back and listen whenever there is something you wish to connect to and dig deeper into, but also feel free to ask questions at any time. We're going to have the usual setup, me talking for a couple of minutes, trying to keep it sweet and short. And then we're going to practice with the content of the day. We might do a guided meditation. We might have some contemplative, reflective elements in that as well, due to the content of what we're talking about this week. And then in the end, we're going to have time for your questions, your impressions, your resistances to anything I said. That is all very warmly welcome. I'm hearing that there is issue with the audio. So if that is the case for more than just Cheney, please put it into the chat box so that I can fill around with the technique if that is necessary. And that brings me to the last point. If you have any technical issues, if you need anything, if you have a question, you can always put that into the chat box. Also, anything you would like to share at the end of our session, just put it into the chat box and I can then respond to that. Okay, so sound seems to be off for some and not off for others, but I think the majority looks fine, so we keep it going. And for those of you who have issues, sometimes refreshing the browser can help a lot, so maybe you want to try that. Okay, let's get started. Fourth noble truth. We come a long way. We almost took a year to get here. Actually, I'll come to that on Friday. We're running around in circles anyway, so it doesn't really matter how long a circle takes us. But we talked about the Four Noble Truths, those four insights the Buddha had during his practice. It took him 7 years to get there, so maybe that takes a bit of pressure from our shoulders. It didn't come as quickly for him either. And those were basically insights in how to be with a certain openness and peace of heart with the unfoldings of life. And with the unfoldings of life, that is the first noble truth, he actually recognized, he acknowledged that, wow, there is always going to be also, part of our experience is also always going to have a sad, a hurtful, an unpleasant, a painful, and a threatening character to it. That is called dukkha. The smaller and the larger ouches, that is going to stay. Life is going to impact. Life is going to affect us, and that is a natural part of what life is about. And for us to experience and be with these ouches, that is also, it's natural and normal that it hurts at times, that it's painful and robbing and unpleasant and unsatisfying at times. It's not something we do actually wrong. That is the first noble truth in a very, very condensed way. Second noble truth in a very condensed way is that it's also only natural and actually pretty healthy that our heart minds, our chitta, you can say your nervous system, you can say your psyche, reacts to these challenges, reacts sometimes subtly and sometimes quite strongly to these challenges. And in doing so, and it's a wonderful thing that it's doing so because it tries to protect and it tries to nourish and it tries to create safety. In doing so, some of these responses and reactions can be quite impulsive. They can become quite strong searches to get something or to build a form of identity which is helping us through, and it can really crystallize and harden and make things, fixed things and fixed pathways and constructs and even fixed images of ourselves while doing so. And in this fixedness, in this push and pull, there can be something which is extra, which is painful, which we don't really need. And we're invited to kind of sort out to say, what is the basic dukkha and what is my reaction to it? Do I really need that? Is that really a healthy way to be with, to react to? And that is what the third noble truth is about, is the Buddha's invitation to say, well, it's possible. It's actually possible that we can learn to see and to understand those painful dynamics and use the underlying energy in a more supportive and nourishing way. So we've gone through all of that, and you're welcome to listen back in those recordings. But this week we're actually finally, one can say finally, in the section of the how-to. Yeah, the fourth noble truth might be the how-to section of the whole teaching. How are we going to tenderize and create spaciousness and create alternative and create choice in our practice? And rather than having the Buddha is not describing a spontaneously finger-snipping wake-up situation here, but actually a path, a practice path, an ongoing path in our lives, something we can practice and give ourselves to on a daily basis. So, I'll read it out to you. Fourth noble truth. There is a noble truth of the way leading to the cessation of suffering. It is the noble eightfold path, namely, appropriate perspective, appropriate intention, appropriate communication, appropriate action, appropriate livelihood, appropriate effort, appropriate mindfulness, and appropriate samadhi. I'll copy that into the chat box for you after my talk. A few things. We're just going to pick this into pieces this morning. A few things you might have heard. The first thing you might have heard is that, wow, she's saying always appropriate. Why isn't she saying right mindfulness, right effort, right livelihood, like we used to hear a lot in our circles? I prefer not to use the word right, as it implies this polarity of there is actually something right and there is actually something wrong, which is always right and always wrong. There's actually something which is always good and always bad. And that, for me, conflicts so much with the Buddhist teachings. To saying, well, I can't pick out a single way of being mindful or a single way to do things like an appropriate action, independently from the whole situation and independently from the causes and conditions of that, and saying this, no matter what, this is always right. Think about your life. Think about your life and think about the complexity, which we go through, and saying, did you ever find a thing, a pattern, a way of thinking, a way of being mindful, a way of communicating, anything which is always, no matter what, right and appropriate? So this is where I tread carefully, and I prefer to use the words conducive to and appropriate. Conducive to and appropriate, for me, takes into consideration to say, what is actually going on? What does this situation need? I've loved that question. What does this situation need? And the situation will involve me and you or us and them and the causes and conditions. And it draws a much broader picture than just saying what is right. So it's not a fixed do this, don't do that path. And some people feel a bit overwhelmed by that, understandably enough. Because there are for me at least, no hard rules. I can't really tell you do this, don't do that. Yeah, I can do that, and the Buddha did that on a very basic level for people who really really need in their lives. A very simple system. Yeah, there are basic ethical guidelines the Buddha gave out to those who haven't gone very far on the path, to say, don't lie, don't chatter behind people's backs. We come to the ethics in a couple of days, etc. Very simple system, but the invitation is actually to look deeper than that. Yeah, can I allow myself to let go of needing fixed rules, yeah, and get on that wobbly path of, oh, what does the situation need? Yeah. They also are lovely and beautiful because they do something else. Conducive to and appropriate for what? Yeah, these are questions on your path, because they help us to remember that we had something in mind, that we actually had a wish, yeah, some intention which brought us to this path. Yeah, something like peacefulness and ease and okayness with the unfolding of life, spaciousness. What else could it be? Openness of heart, tranquility, balance, whatever it is which responds to you right now. And that deeper wish, that deeper intention, that can almost become our compass or our North Star to say, well, is this way of talking, is this way of acting, is this way of being mindful even, is this conducive to this deeper underlying wish I have? Yeah. And then suddenly a path starts to align with that. Yeah. Whereas just simply following a set of rules someone else has given us might not do that job for us. Yeah. It might give us the sense and the safety of doing things right. Yeah. Which is a completely different thing. Doing things right and feeling safe and then, wow, I'm not making any mistakes. I'm a good practitioner. I'm actually doing something for my body, heart, and mind. Yay, I'm feeling safe with that. Versus to say, well, what was my underlying motivation? And how does that align? And how does this align? Maybe more footwork, yeah, but also maybe more nourishing and beneficial. Also, appropriate is not very idealistic. It's not about getting it right, yeah, something which I don't feel well with. It's not about optimizing yourself in every aspect, saying, whoa, no, there are 8 aspects on this eightfold path. I need to get everything right. The question could almost be, what is appropriate in your practice right now? Where are you on these 8 aspects? What matters to you? What is conducive to your balance and your peacefulness and your ease right now? And I find that gives us a totally different perspective on practice already. 2 more aspects, and then we go into practice. When I read this out to you, let it sink in again. Appropriate perspective, appropriate intention, appropriate communication, appropriate action, appropriate livelihood, appropriate effort, appropriate mindfulness, and appropriate samadhi. When you hear that, can you think of an aspect of your life, any aspect, going to work, household chores, anything, practicing, being out in nature, which is not included in that? For me, this eightfold path describes all of what life actually can be about. So practice is everywhere. It's not only on the cushion, and it's not only mindfulness and meditation. If we take this like a cake with 8 slices, mindfulness and meditation are actually but a fourth, yeah, but a fourth of what whole practice is about. Yeah, and there is much more to what practice actually is than just mindfulness and meditation. Important, but not overly important. Yeah. And that helps me as being a mom and being having a day job, not teaching only at nights, but having a second job other than teaching, and to say that all belongs to my practice. It's not that I'm losing practice when I go to the office. It's not that I'm losing practice when I go shopping. It's not that I'm actually, all that is practice as well. And how I shop and what I buy and how I communicate, all that belongs. And I practice actually much more than I think when I only think meditation and mindfulness. So that is a very inclusive, very broad aspect of or perspective and path and practice. And what we're going to do this week is we're going to group these 8 aspects, and some will overlap. You will have some natural overlap into 3 areas. The first will be the practices of insight and wisdom and understanding, how we make sense of what happens to us, what narratives and explanations, what perspectives we can choose. That will be one aspect we're going to talk about. The wisdom aspect we're going to talk about tomorrow. Another aspect of practice is the action and the integrity and the ethics on the communication. How we bring our energies into this world. Energy of body and heart and mind, of doing and talking and thinking about things. That is going to be Wednesday. And on Thursday, we're going to talk about meditation and contemplation and what we are doing with our attention all day long. And this will be about nourishing the well-being of our heart minds, of our chitta, of our nervous system, so that we get that sense of balance and openness of heart. Okay. We're going to talk about that in the next few days. So with all this being said, let's practice for a bit. Find yourself a comfortable posture. You can sit down and you can lie down and you can walk and you can stand. If someone ever danced to a Sangha Live session, let me know. And then move your bodies gently. Good morning, dear body. Some sweet, smaller or larger stretches, maybe some sighing, maybe yawning again, depending on where you currently are. And when your body feels like, thank you, it's enough, you can settle into a stiller position. No need to freeze. If you feel like there can be gentle swaying and rocking. If the body relaxes, you might notice a natural rippling effect during the meditation. Allow it to move. What we're going to do this morning is some acknowledgement, some mudita, some appreciation for all the practice we've already done. And all the teachers and teachings we might have already received knowingly or unknowingly. So that we nourish our awareness of being well rooted on this path already. Even if you're new to mindfulness and meditation and Dharma and all that stuff, you will have an ongoing practice anyways. But before we do so, we allow the body to ground and settle. Invite the mind to clear up a bit. And we can do so by just saying hello to some parts of the body. Hello, good morning, dear feet. I can feel you on the ground, touching the floor, or you might be on your mat or on the sofa. Feeling some heat, some coolness, some pressure, some lightness. Good morning, dear hips and sitting bones, dear buttocks, sitting, standing, lying down, moving. I can feel you. Just a simple practice of reconnecting with the body, remembering the body. Good morning, dear back, spinal cord, and there might be pleasant and there might be unpleasant experiences in any of these physical areas. Or maybe just no need to fully relax or change any of that. It's just a saying hello and maybe a couple of words of gentleness and compassion, saying, oh, dear shoulders, you're already prepared to carry the burden this morning. May you be well. Good morning, dear hands and fingers. I can feel you, can feel the places of coolness and warmth, can feel the tingling and the throbbing in the fingers. Good morning, dear face, areas around the eyes and the mouth. Looking out into the world, having tasted breakfast maybe, maybe not, maybe a cup of tea. Already engaged with experience. May you be well. And good morning, dear thinking mind. Maybe still a bit sleepy, maybe already up and running, up and creating narrative and sorting out things, trying to keep us getting the things it thinks we need and keeping things away. Things might be threatening or uncomfortable. Sometimes so busy to do a good job for us. May you be well too, and may you have moments of calm and stillness today. And if some unpleasant, painful places in the body are calling for attention, maybe just a short visit. No need to solve that or improve that. Just an acknowledgement of saying, yeah, I hear you, I know you're here. And even if the mind is very busy and you can't quite follow me a lot, quite a normal experience during guided meditations, just acknowledge, wow, dear mind, you are on overdrive, or you are really foggy this morning. Good to know. And if you like, you can then just choose a simple experience, a bit of hanging in the waves of breathing up and down, full and empty, or come to a place of bodily, physical experience which feels okay or even a bit comfortable. Maybe the attention follows along and takes a rest with you. To see whether you can fill up the field of attention with that mildly pleasant, uncomplicated experience. Saying, just this, dear mind. Let us rest and be nourished a bit. Maybe it comes along and maybe it doesn't. You could just simply stay here, riding those waves, or putting the attention kindly to that nest of uncomplicated, light, nourishing experience. If you like, you can follow me into contemplation of appreciation, just by remembering how many times you put up the effort to practice, to nourish the heart mind, to soothe the being, to settle the attention, to meet the dynamics within. Sometimes a quiet, courageous job. To not distract, to not flee, to not cover over or immediately solve. And not only in mindfulness and meditation, but on an everyday basis, to stop and pause, to listen, to soothe, to calm. Doesn't really matter whether the result was perfect relaxation or ease or calmness. More a recognition and acknowledgement of how many times we actually tried. A lifetime. A lifetime of trying to regulate, nourish, soothe, and calm. And some of us have heart minds which aren't pretty easy. They can be like wild horses, or they can be quite stubborn and hold on to some energy, some mood, some perspective. Sometimes listening within can be like, oh, going into the swamps. A lot of mosquitoes and alligators there, and we have to tread carefully. So for some of us, there is actually a lot of work stopping and pausing and listening. And yet you're here today, which means you're still in the business of doing that. Maybe inner critic shows up saying, oh yeah, that's true, but we really do a miserable job. We really aren't good at that at all. Saying, I wouldn't say so, dear one. I would say we're still in the process of learning, maybe an infinite learning. But the question is not whether we're good. The question is whether we try. Then you might remember your relationships with others, those close to the heart and those further away from the heart, and all the conflicts and the relationships you were in, on which you tried to manage, the communications you prepared, the many situations where you tried to manage communication, where you maybe didn't say something quickly but paused for a moment. Those many moments where you went into a meeting with good intentions. Maybe you did courses on mindful communication or courses on nonviolent communication or other ways to work on your skills to be with others. Fully acknowledging how challenging it is to communicate so quick, so dynamic, so full of impulses and charge. Again, the inner critic might come up saying, yeah, I remember particularly those moments where communication failed and where I wasn't mindful at all, saying, thank you for reminding me. I remember too, that wasn't a moment where the causes and conditions were particularly conducive to happiness within that relationship. But I also remember moments of good intention, of care, of reflection, of effort. You might remember the choices you make. So many choices over just the course of a single day, and how you sometimes pause and wonder what to do and really care about your action. How you take into consideration yourself and others. How you take into consideration the humans and the plant people and the planet and the animal people. Acknowledging how much energy and effort can go into such choices. That is practice too. And it's not only the perfect decisions which count. We could really wonder whether there are any. It's the intention of showing up and caring. Finally, you might remember all those situations and opportunities where you learned, where you actually allowed your mind quite marvelously to open up to something fresh and new, to be touched by a teaching, to be touched by an experience which changed you. To learn means to make yourself something else, some fresh pattern, some new idea, to be changed by that. Being here means that you are, in an incredibly beautiful way, willing to grow and change, maybe for the benefit of your heart and body and mind and those around you. But you are here showing up and making yourself open and vulnerable to be touched. Wouldn't it be so much easier to say, I'm right and I know how things are and I don't need to learn anything? And yet you're here. Not only Dharma and meditation, mindfulness, but all the other things you are willing to learn and pick up. And then we close this contemplation and reflection and just come back to the body, some more minutes of just silence. Maybe reconnecting with those places you touched in before. Hello, hands, wriggling, agile fingers, now resting heavily. Hello, shoulders, and maybe they grow a bit lighter, seeing all the work which has already been done. It's not that we're never done anything, I never tried anything, I never showed up with courage and never showed up with good intention. Maybe the shoulders can get a bit lighter to say, oh yeah, there is actually a lot of practice under my girdle already. And then when you feel ready, you can gently start moving that body, wriggling the fingers and the toes. Another good morning to the whole somatic field. Just and notice what it needs, some stretching, some yawning, some movements. Gentle, bring it back into 3D space. And when you feel ready, you can open up your eyes and come back to the screen. So this meditation of mudita, like any other meditation of mudita, it can really bring up some form of the inner critic. It's where we try to appreciate some aspect of our lives, of our beings, of our relationships. It's very likely that questions like, yeah, but is this enough? And is this appropriate to appreciate that comes up. So if that was the case for you and it wasn't quite easy, I would actually say that belongs and is part of our practice. But I now would be very curious if you have any questions or any experiences you'd like to share, any comments on the talk this morning. And if you would like to, you can put it into the chat box and just write like reflection or thought or something about it that I know that you wish me to respond to it. Okay. And we shall wait for you to type. It can take some time. And while we do so, I just do the little advertisement part. We're going to start on the 22nd a series on the Brahma Viharas together, online meetings. Maybe you would like to tap a bit deeper into these beautiful resources of, like we just did, learning how to fully appreciate and learning how to be friendly and or deepen the friendliness and the spaciousness and the compassion with experiences within and without. We're going to explore that together in that course. Maybe you want to join. There's still places available. Now, let me see what comes up for you. Oh, and in the meantime, I shall copy you my translation. Yeah, please keep that in mind. You will find different translations from different teachers of the Fourth Noble Truth. Someone wrote a thought, it's so hard to relax thoughts when you feel disappointed by someone else. Yeah, lovely example of what the heart mind, what the thinking mind can actually be doing. To say there are a lot of thoughts for a good reason. There is an ouch, there is a dukkha within, yeah, and something feels maybe rejected or whatever the disappointment is about, some boundary overstepped or some need not recognized or whatever it was, and that hurts. It really hurts. And what the thinking mind does is it tries to find ways to soothe and soften and to find a way with that, and it actually works so hard, and it's not able to rest because that ouch is still marinating. So that is what our practice is about, not to condemn the thinking mind, but to acknowledge, saying, wow, what can I do for your dear heart mind? That is what mindfulness and samadhi practice are about, to soothe you, to nourish you, to make you feel safe and to make you feel connected, so that the whole being can, you remember the North Star, navigate again towards balance. Yeah, so that is an open question. Caroline is saying, thank you, Ulla, for changing the perspective for me. I often think I don't have enough study or I don't know enough. But it was very nourishing to be grateful for everything I have done in practice. A big shift of perspective and learning. Yeah, Caroline, thank you for sharing that. We've all done a lot. Even if none of us would have met mindfulness and meditation, we would all have anyways a form of practice. Practice is not an invention by the Buddha. Yeah, bhavana, he called it, cultivation actually, bhavana. And he didn't only, I hope this becomes very clear this week, mean mindfulness and meditation only. It's a life project in the literal sense. Yeah. And this as beautiful as beginner's mind can be, it can also be a burden to say, I'm always at the beginning and there is so much I need to do. Is this the helpful perspective all of the time? Or do we at times need to stop and pause and almost look backward and say, yeah, I really tried for a long time. And I might have this particularly challenging dynamic within the body. Some of us have chronic pain, and I might have this particularly challenging pattern within the heart mind. Some of us have heart minds more likely to go towards depression or other forms of neural diversity. To say, well, that is something which needs to be acknowledged. So if we only think of ourselves as practicing well when we are calm and balanced, and like Robin, my son, does it all the time, we're not doing ourselves a favor. So Clive says he appreciates the conducive to and appropriate for instead of right. Yeah, thank you, Clive. Me too. I'll that sometimes words can change a whole perspective on things. Yeah, and almost to carry it with me as a question to say, okay, what is conducive to and appropriate for right now? Yeah, thank you. Sue is saying so helpful to think in terms of what's needed right now, what aligns with my intention. Yeah. Those questions, I love to take them with me into the day because they can apply all the time, not only in formal meditation. And that opens up then daily life practice for me. Catherine writes she appreciates the alternative of appropriate and right, too. The image that came to me was of tuning an instrument so perhaps appropriate equals fine-tuned. Lovely. And what now comes as an image as response, Catherine, is almost to say, well, it depends so much on the song. I'm playing guitar, and depending on what song you want to play, you need to tune differently. You need to tune differently, and so different tune and a different chord and a different play is appropriate. Not always the same. Sometimes we think we can get it right once, and then we just say on that railway. That's not what practice is about. And I noticed that a lot of people have this hunger to say, well, I want it simple, and this feels very complex, and I acknowledge that. And we can give ourselves a couple of rules, but hold them lightly. Hold them very lightly and allow them to change and evolve over time again. So Louis said that it's good to remember how nourishing a body scan can be. Absolutely, Louis. Someone said it lately, that after years of practice, just coming back to breathing, just coming back to breathing feels just like, simply breathing. I know how to do that, and body scan can be the same. Natalie writes that she finds the guided meditation to be very tender, and realizes that this is something I wish to cultivate in your own practice. Lovely. I can get quite fixated on getting things right. Kindness, tenderness, acceptance, and all that arise in body, heart, and mind are so important. Yes, absolutely. So this is what I said with the Brahma Viharas earlier. Such a resource. It's almost like changing the whole perspective on how we practice and how we approach experiences. It's to relate differently to the experience, which can make it totally different. Yeah, well spotted. Jonathan is writing, what is coming up for me is a feeling of dread in my solar plexus area. The situation I feel is unfair and uncontrolled, fear rising around an upcoming meeting about this. I'm not sure how to comfort and reassure myself. Any suggestions, please? Beautiful, Jonathan. That is what will be our ongoing practice to some degree. So as I said in the first Noble Truth, life is not going to be comfortable and easy and not threatening anytime soon. So we have this nervous system which will get activated, and some of us have nervous systems which easily get activated a lot. To acknowledge that, to say that is part of this learning how to soothe and learning how to calm and learning how to steady. It's an art form. It's not that, I haven't learned to calm myself yet. Who has? Who actually has learned to do that under every circumstance? It's hardly anyone. I didn't. So what can you show what can you, with your mindfulness, with the gift of attention, reflect back to the nervous system, to your heart mind, which gives morsels like small grains of kindness back to the system. Yeah. Does it mean to need to acknowledge, first of all, to say, yeah, this situation, it's really making me uncomfortable and it feels like a big threat. Yeah. And to acknowledge that fully. This is how the heart mind perceives it in this moment to be. And I'm not going to be harsh on that anytime. Yeah. This is how it's perceived at the moment. It's making me anxious, like we say it with a small child. And there can be a lot of compassion to say, wow, this is a difficult, challenging situation, and I don't need to make that any different from what it is. And based upon that acknowledgement, what can I show you? What can I nourish you with? Which gives me a form of maybe whatever you need to find out for yourself what it is for you. A form of strength, a form of agency, a form of being able to co-gestalt the situation, depending on what the helplessness and the fear is telling you. Okay. And maybe that is something which needs to be clarified further in a one-to-one conversation. So if any one of you needs some support and wishes to have a one-time session or further ongoing support, just let me know. And there is the email address in the chat box to contact me. Claire is writing a reflection. She said this teaching this morning has been a wonderful antidote to the dukkha that is guilt. Yeah, just saying the not enoughness, the not having done enough, and not having really cared. It's so deeply ingrained in our practice to look from a different perspective on two things, which is the guilt can be to say, I didn't solve this situation perfectly. Yeah, I didn't find the right words, the situation went south anyways, whatever it is. And then to remember the intentions on the trying and the trying again maybe, and that we're still in the process and that we haven't closed the door and that we're still engaged with the situation, whether inside of us or outside of us, to say we can acknowledge that. And I find that is changing the perspective. And Natalie, is interested in the Brahmaviharas. Yeah, just check it out. It might not be for everyone, but some of you might enjoy to come together and talk about them. Lizzie writes, small grains of kindness and the rest received with such gratitude this morning. Beautiful. Yeah. We won't hardly ever be showered in kindness and friendliness and compassion and appreciation. Very, very rarely. But it's this small teaching of the Buddha to say, drop by drop, the bucket shall be filled. So may you all receive today small morsels of kindness and maybe appreciate as you go through the day what you do, and keep your eyes and ears open on the many ways in which you practice. Going for a run, that one practitioner asked me on a retreat where he could go for a run because he knows, here's the wisdom, that this would be the best form of calming his heart mind. Yeah, much better than sitting on the cushion and trying to meditate. And I said, well, whoever said that going for a run, going for a walk could not be a form of practice and bhavana, cultivating the heart mind. If you know for yourself this is the perfect way or the best way to calm and soothe and nourish, why can't we include such things in our perspective of practicing, or drawing, or doing some arts or dances or anything? Can we broaden our perspective on practice? So be curious, see what you can find. And tomorrow we're going to talk about wisdom and how to cultivate and practice wisdom in our lives. Happy to have been with you this morning, and I'm looking forward to be with you tomorrow. Thank you.